Ask a refrigerator tech what he'd put in his own kitchen, and you'll get an answer that doesn't sound anything like the commercial. He isn't buying the one with the tablet on the door. He isn't buying the one on the end cap either. He's buying the machine he doesn't have to drive across town and take apart on a Saturday afternoon. And by the time you filter for that, there are two left worth talking about. I don't fix refrigerators. I've said that on this channel for years. I fix washers and dryers. But the men who do work on refrigerators every day are the same guys I trade calls with. And every one of them says the same thing when you corner them on it. They know which two boxes they'd put in their own kitchen. They mostly don't say it out loud because the ones that don't make the list are what pay their mortgage. So I went and did the reading. Real service numbers from a dealer that publishes them. A second source that runs lab tests and surveys owners. The machines themselves, top to bottom. And a small handful of pros who've had their hands inside these things all week for 20 years. 4 inputs. You can check every one of them. Here's what shook out. 2 refrigerators. One that runs around $800 and looks a little bit like the fridge you grew up with. And one that runs closer to $3,400, has French doors, and is the one your kitchen was probably designed around. Both of them defensible for reasons nobody at the big box store is trained to explain. Let me walk you through it. Before we get to either machine, we have to spend a minute on the part that breaks. Because once you understand which single component takes down more refrigerators than anything else, both recommendations start to explain themselves. That part is the ice maker, not the compressor, not the door seals, not the control board, the ice maker. By a mile. The Boston dealer I mentioned, Yale Appliance, logged better than 33,000 service calls in a single year. And out of every appliance category they carry, front to back, the piece that comes back for service more than any other is the ice maker sitting inside a refrigerator. Nothing else on the showroom floor is close. Not the washer, not the dryer, not the dishwasher, not the range. And once you understand why it happens, every French door in the aisle starts to look like a slow-motion problem. Look at the geometry. On almost every French door refrigerator built today, the ice maker is bolted into the fresh food side. That's the top box, the one you open to grab milk. That compartment is running around 37 degrees Fahrenheit every minute of every day. On purpose. So nothing in there freezes solid overnight. Above freezing. By design. Now in the middle of that 37-degree box, or hanging on the wall right next to it, they've asked a small mechanical assembly to produce ice cubes and hold them at 32 degrees or below, forever. That refrigerator is fighting itself around the clock, and temperature disputes always end the same way. What you get out of that fight is exactly what any tradesman would predict. Fill lines that freeze rock hard, chutes that pack with slush and jam, door gaskets on the ice compartment that fatigue out and start dripping. Control boards catching moisture nobody engineered them for. A bin of cubes fused into one wet lump. That isn't a bad brand. That's basic physics. Losing to a marketing decision. And every French door on the market signs up for the same fight. And this next number ought to make you sit up. Every single brand that made Yale's most reliable list in any category of the store came in under 10% service calls in year 1. Washers, dryers, ranges, dishwashers, all of them under the line. Now do refrigerators. The best counter-depth brand on that same list came in at 10.1. More than one buyer in 10 was on the phone with a technician before their first year was up, and that was the winner. The top refrigerator in the store couldn't clear a bar the rest of the store clears without breathing hard. Refrigerators are the black sheep of this entire industry, and the more features you pay for, the harder that gets. That knowledge sits underneath every recommendation a technician would ever give you, and it points at 2 answers. If you want a box that runs for 15 years and never sees a repair truck, buy the one with the fewest moving pieces on the outside. If you want the box you actually put in your kitchen because it's the box your kitchen was drawn around, buy the one built by a company that treats reliability like an engineering deliverable instead of a bullet on the box. 2 answers, 2 machines. Let me name them. The first pick is the unglamorous one, and unglamorous happens to be correct. If your goal is a refrigerator you will genuinely forget you own, buy a top freezer. Freezer on top, no water in the door, no ice through the front, no plumbing running up through a hinge, nothing on the exterior of the cabinet that costs $180 an hour to diagnose. I know what these things look like. They look like the fridge your parents had. And that alone is the reason most people won't consider one. I hear the same objection every time. She won't have it in her kitchen. It doesn't match the counters. Fair. Buy the French door. But sit with me on this one for a minute first, because Consumer Reports has been quietly pointing at top freezers for a decade, and every technician I've talked to agrees under his breath. Top freezers post the highest predicted reliability numbers of any refrigerator format sold in this country. And it isn't a mystery. They are missing the components that fail. No ice maker in the warm side, no dispenser panel, no touchscreen, no water line snaking through a hinge that swings 10,000 times over a decade. A part that isn't in the machine cannot fail in the machine. The specific one to write down is the Whirlpool RT518 SZ-FM, 18 cubic feet, 28 inches across. Sitting around $800 in the summer of 2026, the ice maker is a kit you buy separately. It doesn't come installed. To my eye, that's a design feature, not a corner they cut, because the ice maker is the exact component I've been warning you about for the last 5 minutes. Leaving it out on purpose is engineering, not laziness. One quick warning before you go looking. These manufacturers rev model numbers about as often as they change the box art, and in 9 cases out of 10, the machine hasn't changed at all. One letter shifted on the end because it's a different finish, or it's headed to a different chain. Same internals, same parts book, different sticker on the door. So if the model on the shelf is off by a letter or a digit from what I just said, do not walk away. Check the spec plate. Confirm the cubic feet. Confirm the width. If both of those numbers match what I gave you, you have the same refrigerator. Once in a great while, they actually redesign the appliance and keep the old family name. But that's rare, and confirming the size will catch it every time. That's the first pick, around $800. Boring to look at. It will still be humming along after the kitchen it's sitting in has been renovated twice. Now here's the second pick, and it's the one most of you are actually going to write down. French door layout, bottom freezer, nice looking piece of equipment, the one your wife has picked out. I know, because in my house we have one too, and the same conversation happened there. If a French door is what you're buying, both sources point at the same brand and the same model. Consumer Reports ranked Bosch as the top French door brand on their list. And this is the number that got my attention. Of every French door name Consumer Reports rated, exactly 2 earned a good mark for predicted reliability. Not 5, not 8, 2. Bosch and Fisher and Paykel. Everybody else came up short of the bar. Now Yale runs its own tally, and it comes at the question from a completely different angle. Yale isn't predicting anything. Yale is counting the calls they've actually taken on machines they've actually sold. And in that data, Bosch also sits near the top of the counter depth ranking. So you've got 2 houses using 2 entirely different methods, one predictive and one historical, and both of them land on the same brand. They don't agree everywhere, but they agree on this one. When 2 methods that share nothing in common name the same winner, that's the winner I'd bet my own money on. The model is the Bosch B36 CD52 SNS, 21.6 cubic feet, counter depth. And this one is a textbook case of what I told you a few minutes ago about numbers on stickers. Until fairly recently, this exact same refrigerator was called the B36 CD50 SNS. Bosch changed the 50 to a 52 and left the appliance alone. Identical cubic feet, identical counter depth, identical ice system, identical door layout. So if you're walking a floor somewhere and you spot the older 50 tagged as a closeout, take it. It's the same cabinet at a discount. Everyday price sits around $3,400, though the number moves quite a bit between the chain stores and the independent appliance dealers. Get quotes from 3 places. Never write a check off the first sticker in front of you. Now, I told you my 2 sources don't line up on every brand. Here is where they part ways, because it happens to matter. Yale's service data lists LG as the most reliable counter-depth refrigerator they sell, top of their whole showroom. Consumer Reports has LG French doors flagged as more likely than most to have compressor problems. Same manufacturer, 2 credible sources, opposite conclusions. So how do you reconcile that? Here is what I think is actually going on. Both of them are correct at the same time. LG moved their whole refrigerator line to a linear compressor several years ago, and the transition did not go smoothly. It went badly enough that the lawyers got involved. That is a matter of public record. I'm not going to sit here and try to erase it. But LG also moves an enormous volume of refrigerators every year. And when you sell that many of anything, even a low failure percentage produces a large, very loud population of unhappy customers on the internet. Yale's own numbers put that linear compressor failure at about 1% over a 5-year window. Drawn from a pool, north of 160,000 service events. 1% isn't nothing. If it happens to your box, it's 100%. But it also isn't the picture of a brand that's fundamentally broken, which is what the loudest reviews online will tell you. That right there is what a real answer sounds like. It isn't tidy. Anyone who hands you a tidy answer to a question like that has something they're trying to move off the truck. Now here's the part I feel most strongly about. And this is the ground I actually know because I've been standing on it every workday for years. Before you buy any refrigerator at all, from any brand, at any price point, find out who is going to fix it. Not, can it be fixed? Who? A specific shop, in your town, with a phone that a person answers. Because that person is the one who has to call you back on a Tuesday morning and tell you the part is on national backorder and he can't give you an ETA. I have made that call to customers more times than I want to remember, and every one of them stings the same. Let me put it in the plainest terms I can. A refrigerator with an excellent reliability rating and no one within an hour who will service it is a worse purchase than a mediocre refrigerator with a good technician 15 minutes away. You will never see that fact on a spec sheet. Consumer Reports has no way to publish it. Yale has no way to publish it. And it is more important than every other consideration on this list combined. If your fridge quits at 7 on a Friday, and the nearest tech who works on your brand is 3 hours out, you don't have a refrigerator. You have a very expensive piece of furniture that used to keep food cold. And while we're in the business of saying uncomfortable things, we should talk about Samsung. You'll have noticed Samsung hasn't shown up anywhere in the Yale numbers I've been quoting. That's because Yale doesn't carry them. There is no data set to point at. I'm telling you that up front instead of hiding it. What I can tell you comes from my own shop, not from anyone else's. Samsung is the single hardest brand I deal with when I'm trying to get a part shipped on the laundry side of the business, which is where I actually turn wrenches. Same corporation, same parts pipeline, same procurement policies that supply the refrigerator division. You can draw your own conclusion from that. I'm just reporting what my Wednesday afternoon looks like when I'm trying to source a bearing kit inside of a fortnight. A couple of subjects I'm intentionally not covering, and I want you to know they're absent on purpose. I am not going to tell you there is class action money out there with your name on it. There is a great deal of noise online about refrigerator lawsuits and settlement checks, and some of that noise is legitimate. Most of it is content mills chasing your clicks. I could not independently verify most of what's circulating, so I'm not going to repeat it on this channel. If I can't confirm it, it doesn't go in the script. I'm also not going to hand you a list of 10 refrigerators with 10 affiliate links stacked below the fold. I found 2 machines I can defend on the merits. That's what I've got to give you. If I stretch that to 10 just to pad the description box with links, you would be right to close the tab. 2 machines. That is the entire recommendation. So there you have it. 2 refrigerators. One rule underneath both of them. If you want the box that just quietly runs for 15 years and never asks anything of you, write down the Whirlpool E518 SCFM top freezer. 18 cubic feet, 28 inches across, somewhere around $800. Nothing pretty about it. The ice maker is sold separately, which means the component I spent this whole video warning you about isn't in the machine, unless you decide to add it later. That refrigerator will still be sitting in the kitchen when the kitchen has been through 2 remodels, and it will not have crossed your mind once. If a French door is what belongs in your kitchen, write down the Bosch B36 CD52 SNS, 21.6 cubic feet. Counter depth, somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,400, though a patient shopper can work that number down a fair amount. It's the only refrigerator brand where 2 very different sources, using 2 entirely different methodologies, both put the same name near the top of the list. That's the closest you'll ever get to a clean answer in a category this messy. And whichever one you write down, call an appliance repair shop in your own town before you hand over a credit card, not after. Ask the person who answers, by name, whether the shop works on the brand you're about to buy. If the answer is no, or the answer is yes, with a long pause on the other end of the line, or the answer is a 2-week wait for a diagnostic visit, that also happens to be your answer about the fridge. A refrigerator you can't get serviced on a Thursday afternoon is a refrigerator you don't really own. That consideration isn't printed on any spec sheet anywhere, and it happens to be the single most important factor in the whole purchase. I only know that because I've been the guy on the other end of the phone for a very long time. I don't work on refrigerators. I've been telling you that from the top of the video. But I do know how to research a topic, and I know what the industry actually looks like from behind the parts counter. And I know what the world starts to look like the day the warranty paperwork expires. I live in that side of the story every single week of the year. Next week, we're going to do this exact same treatment on the machine I do actually work on. Because if you think the refrigerator aisle is a mess, wait until you see what's happened to washers over the last decade. Same handful of manufacturers, same shortcuts, same trick with the model numbers on the sticker. Only this time I can prove every word of it with a torque wrench in my hand.